Desiree, do you want to talk a little bit about our conversations about ethnic diversity and including South Africa in this training? Okay, cool. So we're going to let Desiree explain that, because we want to set this up sort of as a cultural understanding of bringing TRE to your populations, okay? And we do this in every country around the world. And so I thought Desiree would be great in teaching this, because we've worked on it a fair amount in South Africa.
Thank you, David. I'm going to start with a quote, or you can't see it, it's the other way around, from a book called My Grandmother's Hands. And it's a quote out of the works of Ta-Nehisi Coates, his work Between the World and Me. And in that he says, but all our phrasing, race relations, racial chasm, racial justice, racial profiling, white privilege, even white supremacy, serves to obscure that racism is a visceral experience, that it dislodges brains, it blocks airways, it rips muscle, it extracts organs, it cracks bones, it breaks teeth. You must always remember that the sociology, the history, the economics, the graphs, the charts, the regressions all land with great violence upon the body. And so TRE as a somatic experience, as a body experience.
One of the things that I wrote down was that racism is a visceral experience. And I don't think that we as African Americans know how much we are impacted in our body from the racial incidents we've had throughout our lives. I don't think we realize how much of that we've stored in our bodies throughout the years since the time we first went to school. So that was, I wanted to just point out that visceral part, how we're taking that in our body and we don't even realize it. And that's why we have high blood pressure and depression and anxiety. And it's manifesting in so many ways of we don't eat properly, we don't sleep, we're drinking too much, we're smoking weed too much. And so that was the point I wanted to make. I'm sorry if I took up so much time. I feel very passionate about that.
We all have a history. We all have had part of that visceral experience.
I think for me, what it made me think about was the fact that even, we talked about how even viewing violence against other people, or like racial issues that happen to other people, can impact us. And I think about why so many people just kind of go into like shutdown mode. It becomes just so overwhelming. Like it's almost like I hear a lot of young people talk about just feeling numb, like they just cannot take anything else in because of like the visceral nature of it. And people will be like, oh, it's not that bad. That didn't even happen to you, but it did. And so now they're carrying that in addition to every other trauma that they have, and they don't know why.
Yeah, I would agree with Sherry and Tina, of course. And it reminds me of something that I'm always trying to communicate to people, in that, Black people have been in like a 400, 500 year abusive relationship with whiteness and white supremacy globally, and how I feel like the world struggles to look at things at a macro level because we get things served to us, in bite-sized pieces. But like, it makes so much sense that all of this intergenerational trauma is present. It's present in our bodies, and also in my community, in the yoga community, trying to get predominantly white studios to understand how microaggressions serve as triggers, and how deeply embedded, like we put our armor on and then we go out into the world. Mm-hmm. And I'm a light-skinned, half white woman. So my armor doesn't have to be as thick as my brown skin and my dark skinned sisters. So there's so many layers to it. And it makes so much sense. And I just wanted to speak to that. And I'm genuinely looking forward to how TRE can help further that dialogue and further, begin to amend that in a way.
We learned, David had shared that you will be learning TRE in the standard way, the way that it is taught, all over the world. but we need to have a mindfulness of what is the language, what are the words that are being used within our communities. There are the cultural community languages and expressions in life. And so part of what we need to learn and what we are learning is we need to know and understand how that language works so that we can develop a way of speaking about, in this case, about TRE, the way that we speak about tension, stress, and trauma, and about the body in that vernacular, so that the people that we want to reach with TRE, that they can understand that. We need to have an understanding of the culture.
So first off, that entire passage was phenomenal. And one of the things I think about is not just us as the Black community, but I'm also very connected with the tribal community here in the Great Basin areas. We have Shoshone, Washoe, and Paiute. And so I'm very connected in that community. And I've seen a lot of those same visceral experiences with land being lost or stolen, land being removed, people being pushed off. And so having that within that tribal community, it's very much a connection with the Black community, very strong connection. And I start looking at how do I bring this into that space as well. But I think the most important thing that I think I see with TRE is TRE addresses something that I've been talking about really over the past few months, which is facing the what is in all of its beauty and discomfort. And so as we start to look at TRE and apply these tools to our bodies, we can see the what is, because the body never lies. And that's one of the things that I've learned through my experience as a theta healing practitioner, but also in my short time of experiencing TRE, is that the body never lies, and utilizing these tools can help bring the what is to the surface, because it's going to come out, and it already has.
And so when we look at speaking to people and introducing TRE and working with people, at different levels, we need to take this into account and not just make assumptions that, this is the way that it worked elsewhere, so therefore it should work in this particular community. How do we go about learning about the communities, learning about the people, learning about the organizations? And once we know that, and with the understanding that we have of TRE and how it works, how do we bring that together in order to create a space where we can engage with one another, to talk about, the TRE and the impact and the benefit? Because we might have an understanding, we might know the benefit that it may have, but when we fail to recognize the communities and the individuals and how they live their lives, right down to the language that they speak, then we could alienate, people from fully participating. And so when we want to introduce new things or a different way of looking at things, a different way of working with life, and in this case, if we want to introduce TRE and work with that, we need to look at what is available now. What do people have access to? What are challenges that they have? And then how can we bridge that? And often there's a lot of conversation that we need to have first. We need to engage with them first. We need to get to know them first before we can introduce them to a new concept. Often when working with people in the communities, when they have maybe some emotions coming up and the memories come up in the TRE process, they're very surprised at where the memory takes them to those particular experiences of either, to do with the racial injustice experiences that they had, because it is buried so deep within their being. And they didn't count that as being a traumatic experience. And so when through the TRE process that does come up, they are surprised. And so part of what we need to do as the TRE providers to hold that awareness that all of that is sitting in deep, deep layers within the body, and that it can come, it can come up as part of the process as well. So that's part of the integration that we need to have, in the space and the awareness that we need to have within ourselves, in order to introduce and integrate TRE as an offering to contribute to community building and social inclusion and healing, for that matter.